Hey YouTube, it's Todd Crusader coming back at you today, and I'm really excited because this is going to be the first of a series of videos that I'm going to do that are going to equal what I call my manifesto. Alright, my idea about God, about faith, and personally my personal journey of faith and how I came to believe in God, specifically the Lord Jesus Christ. And I got a lot of ideas that I want to dispel about faith, and I want to kind of paint a picture for you and kind of let you see the world through my eyes a little bit. And I'm very excited to present that to you. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about today is I want to give you a little bit of my background. I want to paint a picture for you about where I come from so that you understand my journey of faith. In order for you to fully appreciate my background, I want to tell you a little bit about where I am right now today. I'm 32 years old. I'm married. I own my own home. I'm college educated. I have a beautiful daughter and a son on the way. And I'm basically a suburbanite. I'm already at a very young age, leaps and bounds ahead of anyone in my family that I knew kind of growing up. And my life is just really everything that I wished I had had as a child. And my daughter and my children, by the grace of God, will grow up with all the advantages that I did not. And I'm not just talking about materially, but I'm talking about the structure of the home that I'm currently providing for them. And basically, my life is different because I'm from the hood. All right, I live in the suburbs, but I'm from the hood. All right, and if you don't understand what I mean by that, let me just paint this picture for you. I lived in the projects. There were 4 apartment buildings per housing project building, I guess. And let me just describe the other families that lived around me. And I'm not talking bad about these people. I'm just describing the things that went on as a kid. Family to our immediate left was a family of 7. The oldest brother right now is in prison for murder. And it would have been a double murder, but the other guy he was trying to shoot actually literally escaped with his life, and I actually saw him running for his life, running behind my apartment building while he was being shot at, and he narrowly escaped with his life. So that's the first brother. He's in prison right now. The second in line was a female. Unfortunately, like many young women in that situation, she came up being pressured for sex. She became very promiscuous. She got pregnant at a young age as a teenager, and really set her back in life, unfortunately. Then the next brother, he was also involved with some drugs. I never forget, one day I came home early, right when I started college, and he was telling me how he was in a bad situation because he had went to a metro area. He had been shot while he was there. He had been basically trying to stay out of jail. It was a very sad situation, and I remember being moved to tears. I'll never forget that. Matter of fact, I continue to pray for him. But then there was the next brother in line who was a bit younger, and he was also involved with drugs and dealing drugs. And my understanding is that he had been in and out of jail a little bit. And then they had a younger, smaller brother who was a lot younger, so he was too young to get into anything really heavy. But hopefully his plight was different and better than the ones that went before him. But that was that family, and even the father had some drug problems. Very sad situation for them. And then to our immediate, to the other side of us, on the other apartment next to us, was a set of brothers, both of whom are in prison for federal drug trafficking, federal charges. They were actually pretty big players in the game in the area where I came from. And then they had a younger sister who was the same age as my younger sister, who basically, if I'm not mistaken, she had 3 children by the time she was 18. So very sad. And then the other apartment building, the other family, one of the brothers, he was my age as well. He got involved with selling drugs, and maybe 7 or 8 years ago, he was murdered, in what many believe to be a drug-related charge or a robbery or something to that effect. Anyway, it was a consequence of his lifestyle, and very sad situation. So that was my apartment building. So when I tell you I'm from the hood, I am not exaggerating. Okay, and then there was our family. All right, what was the difference between us and the others that we grew up around? And let me tell you, I'm just describing my apartment building. These other issues about dealing drugs and people going to jail, that was pervasive. I mean, that was prevalent in our community, and that was I'm just describing one aspect of it. So then there was our family. All right, let me just tell you about them. I have an older brother. He's an assistant principal. He's got a master's degree. He's married. He's got 2 beautiful children. He's an elder in the church and doing ministry, and very, very successful there again, by any standard, compared to those who we grew up around and compared to other family members. And then there's also myself, obviously, which I've already kind of given you an idea. I married a wonderful woman, beautiful woman of God. We're both in ministry. I'm blessed to own my own home and do all the things that I never was able to do as a kid. I'm definitely not wealthy or anything like that, but definitely in a much better situation. And then there's my sister, my younger sister, who not only did she not get pregnant, but she was not promiscuous at all. As a matter of fact, to my knowledge, she was a virgin when she got married. She married a prince. Her and her husband have 2 beautiful children as well. And they're also doing ministry. And what is the difference between the people with whom we grew up and our family? And there's one thing and one thing only that I can attribute to the stark contrast, and that was God. My mother taught us about God. As a single parent, she modeled faith. She taught us faith. I was actually very skeptical and antagonistic as a teenager. I just didn't buy a lot of this, Bible stuff. But my mother was a great, great woman of God, and it rubbed off on us, and we are a benefactor of her faith. And she just did such a great job. There again, a single mother in the projects, in a hostile environment, raising 3 successful children. I'm telling you, this is something that I recognize even as a young man. I recognized that only God could explain that. And this is when I was very skeptical and not a believer. I had to attribute it to God. And let me just be clear. To my knowledge, I don't really know any of my friends or people that I grew up with, any of their parents really being that type of godly example. And so you really have a true experiment in a sense of, and a true and undisputable result in what happened with our family. So why am I saying all this? I say all this to say I've been really thinking about some of the ideas that I've heard come from the YouTube atheist community, many prominent atheists in the world and in our culture today, espousing ideas that really have absolutely no traction and no relevance in the culture from which I came from. And let me I begin to ask myself, all of this, all these grand ideas and ego stroking that many of the so-called intellectual elite do for each other. I wonder what would happen if they brought those ideas to my hood. Okay, so I basically thought about, what if the atheists came to the hood? Because one thing I remember is I really remember the church, not only the church in general, but specifically Obviously my mother, but the church in general being a positive influence in my community. And I remember they would come pick us up, and they would pick the kids up, and they would take us to Bible school, vacation Bible school. And I remember that, but I can't remember any atheists coming to my hood. All right. But, as I thought about the plight of many people who come from the situation that I came from, and being in poverty stricken, being in broken homes, having to sell drugs, or feeling like you need to sell dope or do illegal activity in order to survive. And I know how the people of faith and people who believed in the God of the Bible, how they helped us. They would say to us, I know you're in a difficult situation right now, but God made you to live above this. And God made you to live a higher standard. And if you trust in Him, and if you live by His principles, things will get better for you, because God's hand will be upon you, and you won't have to rob and steal. God will make provisions for you. But I wonder what the atheists would say to people in my hood. I can imagine it goes something like this. Pookie and Boo Boo, put down your guns and put down your drugs, because see, you evolved these to have these certain moral characteristics, and as a highly evolved Homo sapien, you should really adopt moral standards that our species has evolved to acquire, and because it's beneficial for that we be socially moral beings, and so you may not personally ever reap the benefit of adopting these morals, but rest assured, our species will be sure to continue their evolutionary journey into prominence, and I don't know, however you want to finish that little speech there. I'm at a loss for words, but I'm not exactly sure how that would go over, but I'm guessing that if Richard Dawkins came to my hood, he would probably get clapped. For those of you who are not from the hood and you don't know what that means he would get shot. Okay? I want you to think about this. Why would somebody in a situation where they're impoverished, they're broken, they're hurting, why would they'll say, well, I can do this illegal activity, I can sell this dope, I can come up, I can solve a lot of my problems right now. Why in the world would they care about the good of the species? Which is what many YouTube atheists and different atheists out there are espousing has been the impetus for us evolving these moral bents and these moral attitudes. Well, it was beneficial that we acquire these traits for evolutionary purpose. We evolved to acquire these morals. And I'm thinking that if you put that idea in the context of something real, like where I came from, it's so patently absurd to think that anything like that would be beneficial or that anybody would take those ideas and take them seriously. And we who are supposed to be these highly evolved moral beings, if it doesn't make any sense that not even for a highly evolved society to embrace those ideas, when there's real suffering in an alternative where you can benefit yourself, not the species, if that idea falls flat now, I can't imagine how it would have had any traction in a society where the beings were primitive, and the suffering and the struggle was probably even more abject. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make sense to me. So, in my first video here, I just want to say this. These ideas about how we evolved morally are completely ridiculous. We have moral bents because we're made in the image of God. And I would say this, if you're an atheist, you probably shouldn't go to my hood. Peace out.